there's not really a tradition that I know of that producers actually do the first slate, but I've always done it all of my movies. So ever since I've done this, everything's kind of worked out on the film. So it's the only real superstitious thing that I actually do. And if you look very closely at the monitor, I'm actually wishing the cast and crew all the luck in the world, and I'm also do the first slate and the last slate of the movie, because it's not just enough to get through the film, it's also to get through the post-production, which we're struggling to do now.
And action!
The concept design part of a movie like this is, for me, the most fascinating part, because it is where all the ideas start. It's the next best thing to George's words, because now we're trying to visualize what he's writing. And it comes in a variety of ways. I mean, a lot of times George will be very descriptive in terms of what he wants. And me as a designer, I take those words and try to, visualize it and try to make it work, given the context of the script, so that it works. Other times, it's a real challenge, because there will be very little description, or George won't have a strong preference either way of what he wants to design. In that case, it's wide open for me to sort of, in some ways, throw my own taste in there and see if George likes it. And so concept design is really the very first attempt at visualizing the movie, and it's visualizing it in terms of everything from costume design to vehicles to spaceships to creatures. It's just everything. And a lot of times the designs will either propel the story or hinder it, and hopefully we're always propelling it. And George, being a great visual editor, will always kind of guide us in that way. But the design part of it is very rich, and it carries through to the very end. I mean, it's not just post-production. Concept design, especially on this film, started on day one, and it'll probably end real close to end of the day, right before the film releases, just because of the nature of the work. In terms of when we're building a set, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. Things have to be redesigned to make it work for the shot, and so because of that, we have to redesign a doorway perhaps, and those things come very late in the project. So the concept design phase is a process that goes throughout the whole duration of the film, but it's more heavily weighed towards the beginning.
Well, this is basically our first stab at a stage schedule for the studio. So starting at the beginning, here are two examples of these are the stages we're working on, say two of the big stages, A and B, where we can actually get maybe 2 sets in at a time in the stage using each end of the stage. We have sort of concept design, then sort of model design work, models showing George, then reworking of those models, because we'd never presumed to get the first suggestions of models passed. I mean, it's usually just a sort of a working model. Most models and ideas have maybe 2 or 3 passes through George, and hopefully by that time things are pretty definite, and we move pretty quickly into the drawing stage, into the drafting stage. On this film, I think that the total's been between sort of 52 and 55 assorted between location and constructed sets, or some constructed sets on location. Probably about 40 sets in the studio.
I know you like your sets big.
No, but what do you conference room on that?
Yeah.
Back and ship.
It's about twice the size of the conference room on the Death Star.
It's such an anticlimax when on your first day of shooting, because you've been prepping for so long, and you expect this huge thing to happen, and basically we started off very simply, very gently the first day. So it was just a bit of an anticlimax, so we kind of both walked away and said, God, is that all there is?
Good night, Johnny. Thanks. Glad you guys. Considering. Good night.
Night, guys. Thanks very much. It was a good feeling, actually. It's a really good feeling, but it was anticlimactic.